The ultimatum. Commander Rylan Cade stared through the viewport of Harmony Station, watching as the massive Varasian warship maneuvered into position. Its obsidian hull absorbed rather than reflected the light of the nearby star, making it appear like a void cut into the fabric of space itself. Behind it, 5 more vessels of similar design moved with perfect precision, their weapon ports glowing with a sickly green luminescence. "They certainly know how to make an entrance," remarked Dr. Eliza Sheng, Earth's foremost xenolinguist and cultural attaché. She stood beside Cade, her expression betraying none of the concern that must have been coursing through her. Cade nodded, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. 20 years of peace with the Varasian collective, and suddenly they show up with a battle fleet. Not exactly protocol for a scheduled diplomatic meeting. The communication panel chimed, and the face of a Varasian appeared on screen. Supreme Overseer Krell's chitinous features were arranged in what humans had learned to recognize as an expression of supreme contempt. The translucent membrane covering his 4 eyes pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, a sign of heightened emotional state among his species. "Commander Cade." Krell's voice resonated through the translator, each syllable dripping with barely contained rage. "Your presence is required aboard the inevitable Dominion. Immediately." Cade raised an eyebrow. "That's not how this works, Overseer. We agreed to meet on neutral ground, here at Harmony Station. Agreements change when circumstances change, human." The way Krell pronounced human made it sound like a disease. "You have 1 Earth hour to present yourself, or we will consider it an act of hostility." The screen went dark before Cade could respond. "Well, that was dramatic," said Lieutenant Commander Maya Rodriguez, Cade's security chief. "I'm guessing they found something they didn't like." Cade turned to his team. 6 of humanity's best diplomats and specialists, gathered to address what had originally been described as minor trade disputes. This was clearly something far beyond that. "Options?" he asked. Admiral Chen Wei, the military liaison, spoke first. "We're outgunned 10-1 if those ships are loaded to capacity. Harmony Station has minimal defenses. I don't recommend meeting them on their turf where they control all variables." "I agree," said Dr. Sheng. "But refusing outright could trigger whatever they're planning anyway. We need to buy time for reinforcements." Cade nodded, then tapped his neural implant, connecting directly to Earth Defense Command. "EDC, this is Commander Cade. We have a situation at Harmony." After relaying the details, he received his orders. They were surprising, to say the least. "Understood," he said, before turning back to his team with a smile that caught them all off guard. "It seems we're going to accept their invitation." "Sir." Rodriguez looked alarmed. "Not exactly as requested, though," Cade clarified. "Admiral, please prepare the Mockingbird Protocol. Dr. Sheng, I'll need your linguistic expertise for what comes next. And someone get me a coffee. This is going to be a long day." Supreme Overseer Krell paced the command deck of the inevitable Dominion, his secondary limbs twitching with anticipation. Around him, the elite of the Varasian military hierarchy maintained a respectful distance. None wished to be the focus of his notorious temper. "The humans have responded," announced First Strategist Vex, his carapace bearing the ornate markings of 300 successful battle campaigns. "They are sending a message." Krell whirled around. "A message, not compliance. It appears to be audio only." Vex seemed confused. "Playing now." The sound that filled the command deck was not what any Varasian expected. It was music, a rhythmic, energetic Earth composition that even the translators struggled to interpret. And then a human voice began to sing about never giving up and never letting down. The Varasians stared at one another in confusion. "What is the meaning of this?" Krell demanded. "Is this some kind of ritual challenge, a war chant?" Vex consulted his data terminal. "Our cultural database suggests this is an ancient form of human mockery called a rickroll. It was used to express amusement at another's expense." Krell's bioluminescent patterns flashed crimson with rage. They mock us. After what we discovered. After what we know they've done. Sir, interrupted the communications officer, we're receiving a transmission from Harmony Station. Visual this time. The central display activated, showing Commander Cade sitting casually behind a desk, sipping from a steaming mug. His posture was relaxed, almost amused. Supreme Overseer Krell. Cade's voice was pleasant, as if greeting an old friend. I apologize for the delay in my personal response. You caught us in the middle of our recreation period. Recreation. Krell spat the word. You respond to a formal summons with entertainment. Cade took another sip from his mug. We humans find that a good laugh helps diplomatic relations. Now perhaps you'd care to tell me what's prompted this rather dramatic fleet deployment. You know exactly what you've done. Krell's voice rose to a near screech. Our deep space probes discovered your secret weapon development facility in the Arcturus system. The one your official records claim is a scientific research station. For the first time, Cade's expression showed genuine confusion. Arcturus. That's the Advanced Materials Research Division. They're developing new hull composites and lies. Krell slammed his primary appendage against his command console. We have detected energy signatures consistent with prototype planet killers. You've been building weapons of mass destruction in direct violation of the Orion Accords. A flicker of understanding crossed Cade's face, quickly replaced by what appeared to be amusement. I see the issue now, Cade said. Overseer, I assure you, what you've detected is not a weapon. It's an experimental fusion containment system. Yes, it produces unusual energy signatures. But our scientists are not fools. Human, Krell interrupted. We know what we found. The Varasian Collective will not stand by while humanity secretly arms itself for galactic domination. Cade sighed, setting down his mug. Overseer, I'm authorized to invite your scientific team to inspect the facility personally. Would that satisfy your concerns? Krell's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of suspicion among his kind. A trap, no doubt. No trap, just transparency. This is clearly a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding. Krell's patience had reached its limit. The collective has made its decision. You have 24 Earth hours to surrender control of all military installations to Varasian oversight, or we will consider ourselves at war with humanity. Cade's expression remained unchanged. That's a serious ultimatum over what amounts to a scientific misinterpretation. 24 hours, Commander. Krell leaned closer to the camera. And know this, we have analyzed your defensive capabilities extensively. Your fleet is scattered across 3 sectors. Your planetary defenses are antiquated, and your soldiers are soft from decades of peace. This will not be a war. It will be a correction. With that, Krell severed the connection. On the command deck, First Strategist Vex approached cautiously. Supreme Overseer, if I may, the humans seemed unusually calm in the face of our ultimatum. Because they are arrogant, Krell replied dismissively. They believe their reputation from the Helios conflict still protects them. They forget that was nearly a century ago. We have studied them since then. We know their weaknesses. And yet, Vex persisted, our intelligence suggests they have continued to advance technologically, even during peacetime. Consumer technologies, entertainment systems, medical devices. Krell waved a limb dismissively. Nothing that will save them from our new quantum phase cannons. As you say, Supreme Overseer. Vex bowed and returned to his station, but his compound eyes reflected doubt. Back on Harmony Station, Cade's team stared at him in disbelief as the connection terminated. Did you just laugh at a declaration of war? Admiral Chen asked incredulously. Following orders, Cade replied, standing and stretching. Earth Defense Command believes our best strategy is to keep them off balance. They're expecting fear, panic, maybe desperate negotiations. They're not getting it. But sir, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez interjected, They're right about our current defensive posture. Most of the fleet is engaged in the Ta City exercises. We can't recall them in time. That's assuming we need the fleet as it exists on paper, Cade replied cryptically. He tapped his neural implant again. EDC, Cade here. Authorization Phoenix, 7 Delta. Activate Protocol Lazarus. After a moment, a confirmation chime sounded in his ear. What's Protocol Lazarus? Dr. Sheng asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Cade's smile returned, wider this time. Let's just say humanity has a few surprises up its sleeve. Admiral Chen, please transmit our entire unclassified defensive capabilities database to the Varasian flagship. Sir. Chen looked shocked. That would be giving them our completely outdated and intentionally misleading defensive assessment, Cade finished for him. The one we've been feeding to potential adversaries for the last 15 years. Understanding dawned on Chen's face. The Phantom Doctrine. It's actually being implemented. Indeed it is, Cade confirmed. Now, Dr. Sheng, please prepare a response to the Varasians. Tell them we'll need the full 24 hours to consider their generous offer. Add something suitably diplomatic about hoping to avoid unnecessary conflict. And then, Rodriguez asked. Cade's expression turned serious for the first time. And then we show the Varasian collective why picking a fight with humanity is the worst mistake they could possibly make. The response. 23 hours and 55 minutes after delivering his ultimatum, Supreme Overseer Krell stood triumphantly on the command deck of the inevitable Dominion. Around him, the Varasian fleet had expanded to 15 capital ships, each bristling with weapons that could reduce a small moon to rubble. Status report, he demanded. The humans have made no attempt to evacuate Harmony Station, reported Vex. Their communications have increased by 300%, but encryption has prevented us from intercepting meaningful content. Their known military vessels remain in their previous positions, with minimal alert status changes. Krell's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. As predicted, they're paralyzed with indecision. Their leadership structure is too fragmented for rapid response. There is one anomaly, Vex added hesitantly. We've detected unusual activity in the asteroid field at the edge of this system. Energy fluctuations consistent with mining operations have increased by 700% in the last 12 hours. Mining. Krell laughed, a harsh chittering sound. They face extinction, and they're concerned with resource extraction. Perhaps they hope to buy us off with raw materials. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. Incoming transmission from Harmony Station. On screen, Krell ordered. Let us hear their surrender terms. The display activated to show Commander Cade, now standing in what appeared to be a strategic operations center. Gone was the casual demeanor of yesterday. Now he wore a formal uniform adorned with decorations that even Krell recognized as marks of combat experience. Supreme Overseer, Cade began, his voice steady and authoritative. I'm authorized to respond to your ultimatum on behalf of the United Earth Government. Proceed, Krell said magnanimously. The terms of your surrender will be reviewed with all due consideration. Cade's expression didn't change. Surrender isn't being offered, Overseer. Instead, I'm instructed to extend one final opportunity for the Varasian collective to withdraw its forces and return to diplomatic channels. Stunned silence fell over the Varasian command deck. Krell recovered quickly, his bioluminescent patterns flashing with fury. You dare to counter-threaten us. With what? Your pitiful defensive capabilities are known to us. Your fleet is outdated and dispersed. Your ground forces haven't seen real combat in decades. Cade nodded solemnly. That's the official picture, yes. The one we've been carefully cultivating for exactly this sort of situation. He paused, allowing his words to sink in. Overseer, you should know that humans have a long history of appearing weaker than we actually are. We find it advantageous. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Krell's features. Meaningless bluster. Your time is up, Commander. The Varasian collective hereby declares. Before you finish that sentence, Cade interrupted, you might want to check your sensor readings again, particularly the asteroid field you've been monitoring. Vex immediately turned to his console, then froze. Supreme Overseer, the asteroids are moving. All of them. Against gravitational predictions. What? Krell hissed. They're not asteroids, Vex continued, his voice filled with disbelief. They're ships, or at least artificial constructs with propulsion systems. Thousands of them. The main view screen shifted to show the asteroid field, where what had appeared to be lifeless rocks were now revealing themselves to be disguised vessels of varying sizes. Hull plates that perfectly mimicked the composition of natural space debris were sliding aside to reveal weapon emplacements and engine ports. Allow me to introduce you to the Phoenix fleet, Cade said, his voice calm but edged with steel. A defensive force we developed after the Helios conflict taught us the value of strategic deception. These vessels have been hiding in plain sight for years, disguised as natural formations across multiple systems. Krell's compound eyes widened as tactical displays updated with the new information. The ships emerging from disguise were unlike any human designs the Varasians had studied, sleek, predatory, and radiating energy signatures that suggested weapons technologies far beyond what humanity was supposed to possess. Impossible, Krell whispered. Our intelligence was exactly what we wanted you to see, Cade finished for him. Those outdated ships you've been tracking. They're real, but they're only a fraction of our actual defensive capability, a fraction we don't mind showing to potential adversaries. Supreme Overseer, Vex reported urgently, the human vessels are taking up formation. They outnumber us, significantly. This changes nothing, Krell declared, though his voice lacked conviction. Our technological superiority is also in question, Cade interjected. That facility in the Arcturus system you were so concerned about. You were right to be concerned, but wrong about what it was developing. It wasn't planet killers. It was something far more specific. As if on cue, a series of small, barely visible distortions appeared around each Varasian warship, ripples in the fabric of space itself. What is happening? Krell demanded as warning alarms began to sound throughout his flagship. Quantum field destabilizers, Cade explained, specifically calibrated to the frequency of Varasian shield technology. Your ships are currently experiencing a 90% reduction in defensive capability, a technology we developed not for war, but as a precaution, because while humanity hopes for peace, we prepare for those who might choose otherwise. The command deck of the inevitable Dominion erupted into frantic activity as officers reported multiple systems failures and shield collapses across the fleet. This is your final warning, Overseer. Cade's voice hardened. Withdraw your forces now, or face the consequences of your miscalculation. Krell's carapace seemed to lose its luster as the reality of the situation dawned on him. What had appeared to be an easy submission of an inferior species had transformed into a potential extinction-level event for his fleet. Yet his pride would not allow immediate capitulation. You would start a war that would engulf the galaxy, he challenged. We didn't start this, Overseer, Cade countered. But we are prepared to finish it if necessary. Your move. For several tense moments, silence reigned. Then, slowly, Krell lowered his primary appendages in a gesture of reluctant concession. We will withdraw to neutral space, he said, each word clearly painful to articulate. 2. Reconsider our position. A wise decision, Cade replied. We will transmit coordinates for a proper diplomatic meeting to address your concerns about our research facilities. I suggest we both bring scientific advisors instead of warships next time. The transmission ended, leaving Krell staring at a blank screen. Around him, his officers awaited orders, their postures reflecting a mixture of confusion and relief. Begin withdrawal procedures, Krell finally ordered, his voice hollow. Maintain defensive positions until we reach the hyperspace threshold. As the Varasian fleet slowly maneuvered away from Harmony Station, First Strategist Vex approached his commander. Supreme Overseer, our intelligence division requires guidance. What should they report to the collective about human military capabilities? Krell stared out at the stars, watching as more and more disguised human vessels revealed themselves, a hidden armada that had been lying in wait while presenting the facade of vulnerability. The truth, Strategist Vex, Krell replied quietly. Report that we have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of humanity. They are not the scattered, complacent species we believe them to be. They are wolves who have learned to walk among sheep without arousing fear, and we have been fortunate to discover this without paying the ultimate price. And the collective's expansion plans. Krell's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with a new pattern, one signifying a profound paradigm shift in Varasian thought. Tell them, he said slowly, that perhaps there are paths to greatness that do not require domination. Perhaps there are lessons to be learned from a species that prepares so thoroughly for war that they need never fight one. As the inevitable Dominion led the retreat of the once proud Varasian fleet, Krell found himself doing something previously unthinkable, admiring his enemy. The humans had won without firing a shot, using the mere threat of their hidden strength to avert a conflict that could have cost millions of lives. Most impressive, he murmured to himself. They laughed in the face of war, because they knew exactly how it would end. Back on Harmony Station, Commander Cade watched the Varasian retreat with his team. That went better than expected, Admiral Chen observed. Think they'll be back? Not looking for a fight, Cade replied confidently. Next time, it will be with scientists and diplomats. Threats only work against humanity when we're actually vulnerable. Dr. Shang shook her head in amazement. The Phantom Doctrine, the Phoenix Fleet, all these years of deception, just waiting for someone to test the waters. An ancient human general once said that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Cade said, reaching for his coffee mug. Today, we honored that tradition. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, still monitoring the retreating Varasian ships, glanced back at her commander. Sir, should we deactivate the holograms now? Some of the projectors have been running for almost 20 hours. Cade chuckled. Might as well. No point maintaining the illusion once they're out of sensor range. One by one, hundreds of the imposing warships that had so thoroughly intimidated the Varasian fleet began to flicker and vanish. Sophisticated projections created by a handful of actual stealth vessels and augmented by sensor manipulations. And the quantum field destabilizers? Chen asked with a grin. Atmospheric disruption, boys, Cade replied. They create a light show and interfere with basic scanning equipment. Completely harmless. The team shared a laugh as the last of the Varasian ships disappeared into hyperspace. So we bluffed our way out of an interstellar war, Rodriguez marveled. With holograms and light shows. Not entirely, Cade corrected her, his expression growing serious. Earth Defense Command has been developing actual countermeasures for years. But why reveal your real capabilities when a convincing illusion will do? The greatest weapons are the ones you never have to use. He turned back to the viewport, gazing at the stars with a thoughtful expression. The Varasians will return eventually. But next time, they'll come with respect rather than arrogance. And that, he concluded with satisfaction, is how humanity prefers to conduct its diplomacy. As the team dispersed to file their reports, Cade remained at the viewport, contemplating the vast darkness of space. Somewhere out there, other potential adversaries were watching, calculating, considering whether humanity would make an easy target. Let them come, he thought. We'll be ready. And if necessary, we'll be laughing.